She was in bed.
Coco?
Yeah.
Let's have. We'll get started in a few minutes, just letting people kind of come in. We don't quite have quorum yet, but we're not too far, so. And it's still technically not 10, so stay tuned. Get there. Gonna just give it another minute or two, see if we can get quorum. Okay, we actually have enough people for quorum, I think. So let's call this meeting to order at 10:02 a.m. Okay, so we'll do a roll call now. So Kathleen Rooney, that's myself, I'm here. Tara Lucas.
Here.
Robin Shishido is not here, but I believe that Brian, you are here in his stead.
Yes.
Wonderful, thank you. Heidi Hansen-Smith.
Hi, I'm here.
Audrey Hidano, are you here today? Megan, are you here in her stead, by any chance? Okay. Russell Suji. I don't actually know how to pronounce his last name, so I might have messed that up. From DLNR, are you here? Okay, Leah Laramie? I don't think you're here today. Okay. Chris Yunker, I don't think you were here. Nicole, are you here in his stead?
Yes, I'm here.
Wonderful, nice to see you. All right, Sierra Whiteside, are you here? Okay. Yamato Sasaki? There you are, I see you. Yep, all right. Jesse?
Good morning.
Is it, can you say your last name for me? I'm gonna try and.
It disconnected?
Oh, sorry, can you hear me now?
I can, yeah.
Okay.
But my
Sorry,
last
can you
name you
pronounce
said
your, yeah,
it's Domian.
Domian, okay, all right, I will work on that.
Yep.
Oh, Leah, you're here, all right, I'll change you, there we go. Michael Moole, are you here? Okay, Kurt Watanabe? See you, okay. Tommy Noyes,
I'm here.
wonderful. James Burke?
I am here.
Okay. Jessica Thompson?
Present.
Jeannie Torres? Senator Chris Lee? I saw you.
Hey.
Yep, there you are. And Representative Chris Todd. Okay. All right. So with that, I think we have enough. 1, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yep, we have 12. So we do have quorum since we're going to be taking action today. I want to make sure we have everybody. If you need to leave, can you just sort of flag it for me? It just helps me keep track of that. Okay, so that was call to order, roll call. We are going to cancel item number 2 on here. We must again defer the approach of the meeting minutes. As HDOT is working on populating the Safe Routes to Schools website, HDOT has acknowledged this and said that it's working on the issues which must be addressed to bring us in compliance with Sunshine Law. Tara, have you heard any updates on that from the PAO office by any chance? I haven't, but I just wanted to check.
I haven't.
Okay, thank you. So, we have to post them publicly in order to like vote on them for approval, but I'm gonna send out the package after this meeting just so everybody can start to review in advance. So I don't think there are any issues with me sharing. It's just in order for us to actually vote on it, they need to be available for people to review publicly. With that in mind, Jesse, are you ready to present? We have your.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Let's get going then.
Here. Trying to share this PowerPoint real quick. Can you see that?
It's loading. Give it, yeah,
Okay.
I think we can now. Wonderful, thank you.
Very cool. Good morning, everybody. So a lot of familiar faces here, but for anybody who isn't familiar with me, my name's Jesse Domian. I'm the Safe Routes to School coordinator for Hawaii County. I started back just this early summer or late spring, transitioning from a previous role with the engineering division into this one. When I made this presentation, I wanted to say that this program is still in its infancy stage, but I think we're really starting to gain some momentum here and actually get a lot of our action items done, which is really exciting. Because it's a new program, we were very adamant that we familiarize ourselves to the conditions that we're experiencing currently so we can kind of get an idea for what we can make it. And that's why it seemed as though it was kind of a slow start, trying to get ourselves prepared and see what we're up against, but also see what we're working with. So it's been very exciting. And we have a lot going on. We've got grants in motion. We have people, boots on the ground, working on some of our projects already that had kind of begun before I started this position. But we're also getting into what looks to be the next phase of our program. So exciting times. The island itself and what we're working with is, over 4,000 square miles here on the Big Island. We do have 3 different complex areas, from the Hilo Waikea to the Ka'ukeaupohoa, as well as our Honoka'a, Kealakehe, Kohala, and Konawaena complex. All of that culminating to be 41 schools that are listed on the DOE site, public and charter schools, with 22,500 plus students. That's not accounting for Kamehameha, HPA, St. Joe's, and various other private schools that would actually bring our total students over 25,000 kids. That we'd like to be able to have at least as many as possible of them be able to bike and walk to school and other places as well, which is another very exciting part of our program. We're starting to see development not only from residential areas to the schools, but also to common park and recreational areas as well. So, trying to keep some things in mind as we, to keep ourselves focused here. A major one of those being collaboration. There were already plans in motion before this program was adopted by the county. We really want to learn about those efforts being made. We really want to make sure that we have good relationship with the folks who are making them and see how we can help expand on what's existing. We don't want to step on anybody's toes, and we don't want to waste anybody's time being redundant either. So that's been a major focus that we've been working with lately. We also really want to have a better understanding of what's preventing students and their families from biking and walking to school. No matter what you look at from the one size fits all approach, it's going to be infrastructure and education, but we want to hear that from the parents. We want to hit that on an individualized, what each school complex or school themselves are dealing with, so that we can best address how we can accommodate and what we can accommodate, not go up against brick walls, but try to work with what is practical and applicable. And in that regard, identifying how the county can have the biggest impact is a huge focus for us right now. We also want to take a very supportive role. We want to provide parents, students, schools, community groups the opportunity to voice their concerns and to let us know, where we can best help them. It seems as though we need a platform for that. So as we try to kind of move forward with our website and with various other ways of community outreach, we want the community to know that we are here to support their efforts, which leads us into our engagement. We really want to have meaningful dialogue. We want people to come away from what we're trying to do to assist them. We want them to take something away from that. So yeah, exciting times, challenging times, but definitely happy to see it gaining some momentum here. This is just a clip right from our existing DPW website, showing some of our guys out fixing the right of way in our downtown Hilo, right adjoining a couple of our school complex areas. We have a huge support network right here within our department, but we also have communication breakdowns as well. And this shows, we have engineering, we have highways maintenance, we have traffic, we have our administration section, all of which are a major component in our abilities and in our efforts to making our Safe Route to School program successful. But even our communication could be better. So bridging those gaps in-house is a huge goal of ours as well. In that, it's very commendable and very exciting that our highways maintenance and our traffic guys have been out island wide with various traffic calming devices fronting our schools, all the way from Kohala down to our Kalaniana Ole complex. Wainuenue is looking great now and also has speed tables installed. These are great projects. They're very impactful. We're super excited. But even as the coordinator, sometimes I'm hearing about these after they're already done or when they're already in the construction phase. But still very noteworthy. We're also really excited to see that the state is making some big headway on Point Echo. So we have already heard some community buzz and people who are excited to get their kids hopefully walking along that corridor when that's completed. In-house, we've been all over the place. One of our first priorities was to create an in-house file system. We really wanted somewhere to put documents as they come in, emails from the public, anything from DOT, anything pertaining to a school or a complex or to our Safe Routes efforts that we're doing or somebody else is doing. We wanted to be able to link that to the school that it's associated with. So that's done, and we're actively building that database, and that's been super helpful. We have our parent survey done, and it actually recently, we tested it, we published it, and it went onto our website, which just went live last week. We haven't even done anything for PR to push that out there. We got it up. We had a million things going on, and now I'm going to work with our public outreach specialist and hopefully get that out to the schools and try to encourage parents to fill out that parent survey and help us start accumulating some of that valuable data. We also have a handful of Safe Routes to School and related infrastructure grants and projects at various phases, primarily around our school complex area. So it's very exciting right now. The other thing that we really wanted to focus on and that we're working on is finding our sense of place. We really want to make sure that we can find where we fit in. We don't want to be pushy. We don't want to tell people what they should or should not be doing. We want to be able to support our schools and our parents and our students to the best of our abilities, but we want to have the largest impact possible on the most amount of students. We want it to be equitable. So it's exciting. We're trying to be humble. We're trying to take it slow, but we're trying to take action because we know that little things we do now, we're going to have a big impact later. This group is also very integral and adds a lot of excitement to that as well. We've got a handful of projects right here in Hilo that are at various phases. Our Kilauea Avenue Phase 1 was actually completed up through Ojea Street, one of our main corridors through town, fronting several schools. And we do have Phase 2 on the books, which will hopefully take us all the way out to Kawailani and potentially High Street, which is going to connect shopping centers, schools, and residential areas. So very exciting. Our Kauili and Lanikaula Street is at multiple places. Lanikaula is actually currently being built out. Kauili Street's in the planning grant funding phase, but that's going to be a huge piece of the puzzle that will actually link down to our Monono Street corridor, which is again at its own completely unique phase of trying to acquire right-of-way access and future road widening. But that connects to our main civic center throughout town. So, as well as the bike shops, which in the big piece, those three alone are going to be a game changer for Hilo. Kawailani Street is another major road that fronts our Waikea complex, and that's going to connect our residential areas with, again, three major schools here on island. And then Kahakai Boulevard, it will be helping out Keone Poko School out in Puna. And that as well, I don't have a timeline, but that is designed and I think ready. So Moho'oli Street's another one that fronts Kapiolani Elementary School all the way up to Komohana. And I think we're finally getting some much needed bicycle infrastructure and sidewalk improvements there. And then our Kaiolani Wailuku Drive, Wainaku Street project is just going to be perfect for serving our Wainaku neighborhood to get to Hilo Union Intermediate and Hilo High School. So again, much needed, quieter roads, but with plenty of right-of-way access where kids are just walking in the road. So super excited to see sidewalks go into place there, especially as the things get busier downtown. Unfortunately, our latest bike plan is the classic 1979 County of Hawaii bike plan. She's old, but she'd work. It's definitely outdated, but it's not irrelevant. And so a major part of what we're doing now is just trying to complete it where it's applicable. There's some things that kind of throw us in left field there, but for the most part, even back 1979, they had a really good idea where these population centers were and where they needed to get to. So it's nice to look back on this old plan and see how much of it is applicable today and how much of it we're currently working on, but it also shows us exactly where our gaps are. And that has been a major goal for the engineering division lately, is connecting those gaps. We've got partial improvements on Monono, partial improvements on Bayfront, but you can't get from Monono to Bayfront safely. So we're really excited to start to see this come more into fruition. And what's great about it is everything on this plan, basically, at least for the Hilo section, is within 1 mile of our school system. So it should really come to benefit the community as well as our students. This particular slide depicts our Kauili Street project that we're actively working on. Awkwardly, it shows a path going right through the YKS Schools complex, which we are not planning on doing as the DOE facility, but it wouldn't be a horrible idea for them to have some way to get across that complex. So, but seeing this come down to Lanikaula and out to Kanoilahua is going to be awesome. This portion shows our Kilauea project up to the point where it's actually completed currently, as well as the Pauahi Street, where our bridge is being currently rebuilt, and it connects to Hilo Bayfront Trails. So we've got our Kapiolani school system right there on the corner going up to Moho'uli. This should be a really nice corridor. Well, the one portion is done, but again, having that connectivity is just key. Moho'uli is currently being worked on, and this also shows our Kalanianaole project, which is complete, only one side of the road, but it's still a big, beautiful sidewalk with bike paths on both, leading us right down to our DHHL land, which is highly populated and does house multiple schools, not to mention the best recreation in Hilo. So. And then, of course, the remainder of Kalanianaole all the way out to King's Landing, from that residential area, from those two schools, which they recently did last year, the Keokaha Quick Film. So all of those things, I'm starting to hear more and more talk, more and more chatter about people wanting to get out and bike and walk. And stoked to see that infrastructure coming into place that's going to allow for that. This portion was the only thing that wasn't necessarily fronting or directly associated with a school. As far as within 1 mile of it, the Waikea Peninsula is only close enough to Kapiolani School, but when you do the 2 mile filter, just about all of the Hilo schools actually are within 2 miles of that major recreation center, almost the heart of Hilo for bayfront access and recreation with Liliuokalani Gardens there. So not a Safe Routes to School project. It's actually managed by DBED, but they have a whole redevelopment plan, and I think that'll connect really nicely with what we have going on as well. This is one portion that's showing our improvements all the way up for EB De Silva School, which has been a huge concern since taking this position. Numerous people have brought that to our attention. I know that we have plans in the works. Unfortunately, they were not funded the last round, but to have a plan in motion, we know that there's a need, and to even see that all the way back 1979, that need was was coming up even then, does give me some excitement to see hopefully gaining some ground on that in the next couple of years. But unfortunately, I don't have a time frame, as well as our much needed Komohana corridor. Here we show our Kawailani and Puainiko project. Puainiko, the state's currently doing. Kawailani, we're currently working on. I'm not sure about the applicability of the Ainaloa Drive anymore, but I do know that they want to stretch our bike infrastructure all the way out to Steinbeck when they redo the single lane bridge at the end of Kilauea. So we really should have a reasonably flat, at low elevation bicycle network connecting all of our schools and the majority of our ocean recreation activities and shopping centers. Unfortunately, once you get outside of the semi-descriptive Hilo section, this is the plan for the rest of the island. Kuakini Highway and Ali'i Drive, which have both had considerable cycling and pedestrian infrastructure improvements since the 70s and are actually very rideable and do adjoin a couple of their schools out there. But this also goes to show how dated our plan is. It doesn't take into consideration any of our major population centers in Kohala, Ka'uhu, Waimea, places where we have a lot of good things going on. But this is motivation for the engineering staff. They have mentioned that they're actively trying to figure out how to move forward with getting a new bicycle plan drawn up and enacted. But in the meantime, we're trying to connect the gaps on what we've got. As far as current needs for our program to be successful, what we're currently really looking for, we need to identify a clear path to efficiently and equitably get information out to our schools and our complexes. We have all 41 school principals' emails on file, and we can send out blast emails, but we don't necessarily know that each principal is the appropriate person to coordinate with within those schools. And we want to be able to get information out to everybody. So we are very hopeful that, through networking with this group and ideally with the complex coordinators, that we can find an efficient way to reach people. and without inundating them. Like, hey, you get an email a week from the county driving you crazy, and you're not even the person who handles that. But we want to get in touch with the right people that are interested. We're also working diligently. We want to get accurate data on what is preventing parents from allowing their kids to bike and walk to school. There's blanket statements. There's, of course, like, oh, the roads aren't safe, times have changed, this and that. But we want to know what specific issues, where those problems are occurring, where are the choke points, and find out what we can actually address in what type of time frame. We also want to get the word out to the different schools and to the parents and to the community groups that, we have this position, we have these prerogatives, that we have these goals, and that we're here to support their efforts. And so that's something that I think very recently, now that we have our website up, we have our parent survey out, we have a few behind the scenes things cleared up. So I'm ready to start working with our public outreach specialist and try to promote and market our program and really get the word out. But that's kind of it in a nutshell for Hawaii County's efforts. It's just my card right there. It does have a link to our site that has gone live, as well as to our direct email and a picture of our fancy new logo that we finally got figured out. So yeah, thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Jesse. It looks like we have a lot of questions. So I guess, Yamato, do you want to go just read yours? I'll start with the ones in the chat, and then if other folks have some, I do also have some. So.
Oh yeah, I was wondering how you fund your infrastructure projects. What amount of money do you use?
Currently, it seems as though everything has been federal grant. There has not been a lot of in-house funds being used, depending on now, like highways and traffic have their own for the like the speed hump installations and the new signage and the smaller ones that we're seeing. So that's been very nice that they can respond more quickly. But our larger ones have been like pulling teeth. But Keone Thompson of the engineering division is kind of a grant wizard, and he's been working behind the scenes to try to allocate funding for these future ones.
I guess a follow-up question is, for these projects, is it based on distance from the school that makes them safe routes to school projects? Or do you work directly with the school to identify the need, and then that's how the infrastructure project is born?
We have not been working directly. There was, with Wainuinui, there was a lot of actual work with the school before our Safe Routes program, actually. The Hilo Union job to get to Wainaku has been coordinated a little bit with the school, a lot with the community, because there was a little bit of right-of-way acquiring necessary there. And I think that's one that they actually listed as a Safe Routes project versus the others, which like Moho'uli wasn't done as a Safe Routes project, but it is actually fronting the school and comes to benefit just at an awesome time. But we're really looking forward to, right now, that's just kind of what they're working with based on the old Hilo bike plan. The next phases are trying to work with the schools more proactively to see what we can do either as quick build or directly from highways or traffic maintenance funds, or do we have to do a major project and secure grant funding?
Heidi, I think you're up next from the chat. I'm gonna go Heidi, Justin, and then Senator Lee. Okay.
Oh yeah, I was just curious about if you guys had any plans to update that bike plan. It's pretty old. And then I don't know if it's potentially possible to use some of the Safe Routes funds once they become available, if you're focusing on the plan around schools specifically.
We definitely have every aspiration to update that bike plan. That's something that the chief of engineering was talking about. The last one was done by the planning department. This one, I believe he mentioned having potentially a consultant. Well, I'm sure they did as well. Consultant do that, but I don't know if we're going to collaborate with them again or if he's doing that outside of it. I'm also interested to know if, I don't know if Safe Routes funds can be used for the planning phase or just for the construction. I think it depends on what types of grants are available. But ideally, if we have an updated plan, that'll much better position us to start applying for those funds as well, especially for some of the smaller just connectivity gaps. When it comes to major roadway improvement, it's going to be tough, but there's places where we just have a single parcel where the infrastructure just drops off and we need to just go out there, get it fixed, get and sometimes acquire the right of way, but build the sidewalk and bike path. But yes,
Okay, thanks.
definitely.
Sorry, Justin.
And apologies for your presentation. I just
Hey,
have a quick question. Thank you. For the for ongoing work related to pedestrian and bike infrastructure implementation, as well as planning and design, does the County of Hawaii, are there, I'm not sure if there's any reporting mechanism to publicly make that information available, like the number of pedestrian and bike facilities that's being planned, designed, or being constructed. Do you know if that might be a capacity, if that hasn't been available, if that's not happening yet, that might be a capacity issue, and if there's anything that partners can help to support?
As far as the proposed infrastructure project, like creating like a new almost phase 1, phase 2 type system or tier system, or I do know
Oh,
that
no,
we're
sorry.
hoping to. Oh, please.
No, sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, we are in the process of trying to get a GIS analyst to help us, well, to bring on staff to hopefully get down all of our existing infrastructure so we can more clearly identify the gaps instead of it just being project by project, but to have an actual database, which will allow us to prioritize, and then ideally put kind of dollar amounts on that so that we can even further realize what we can accomplish within reasonable timeframes or unreasonable extended timeframes, because some of those are just 3 and 4 years out. But I think there's a lot that we can get done right now if we can identify those specific gaps in those smaller projects. But yes, there will definitely be help that we're going to be asking from you and from our partners, and especially when it comes to kind of getting that word out and yeah, to just identifying the needs. I'd also like to pick your brain about some of your stuff over there. So I've been meaning to reach out.
Definitely, I'll send you an email this afternoon.
That would be
Thank
great.
you.
Senator Lee.
Oh, thanks a lot. Thanks for the presentation. It's kind of mind-boggling that these plans are literally older than I am. Which, says a few things. But I'm curious, for Hawaii County, have you guys taken a look and been able to identify kind of dangerous corridors, dangerous intersections, that kind of thing, based on a lot of the actual use stats and so forth?
We've gotten some really valuable data from DOT with crash statistics, absolutely. And you can see the trend. You can see the areas where we have specific issues. Of course, there's one-offs here's and there's, but it's very interesting to see when you start to look at that crash data that we don't have a lot of accidents, but the majority of our fatal accidents are all within one similar corridor. Like, okay, obviously there's a huge problem. How can we address that? We don't have our own in-house documentation of that. So typically that's when we're applying for grants. We request data for certain areas. We can get some data from our local law enforcement, but Hawaii DOT actually has a great database of that. But hopefully we're going to get some more adept software that's going to allow us to have kind of either a layer of our own that we can use so we can look more island-wide. But currently it's just piece by piece.
Yeah, thanks for that. That's helpful.
Thank you.
Were you guys, I guess, engaged in some of the separate new laws that we had passed this year that would impact these kinds of conversations? Have you guys been following?
Not on a county or from a safe routes to school perspective, just as a community member and cyclist who's always kind of got my ear to the ground with stuff like that. But no, but I would really like to be more involved, and I'd like for our program
there's
to
one
help.
that may impact some of what you're looking at here, which may provide an opportunity. We basically changed the law this year to say that not only the state, but the counties as well when they identify dangerous areas like this, are basically obligated to develop the plans to fix it and also include kind of all the stuff we're talking about, access for all modes of users, pedestrian, cyclist, etc. And in doing so, I forget exactly what the language is, but basically before you can go and rehabilitate a road and simply repave, like you actually have to go through and do the analysis to look at how to fix all the dangerous stuff. And then that becomes the priority for the project.
Are you referring to the Navahine case? Yeah.
No. This was just passed
separate. Okay.
This year.
Okay.
So it only went into effect, I think, like July 1 or something.
Oh, wow.
So it's
okay.
brand new. What it means ultimately is that for a lot of the overlapping areas where there's dangerous stuff, where you have a safe route plan that targets some of that, there's an obligation on the part of the counties now to prioritize those projects. In other words, counties can no longer just go repave a road where it's clear issues. Is the short of it.
No, that's awesome because we've gotten a lot of word of mouth excuses within our own departments and within other county, facilities like, oh, the money wasn't there, oh, the space wasn't there, and they just kind of do it. And we would like to get a more, solid plan down. And if that's going to actually have some accountability, that's exciting news. So.
Yeah,
Senator
something to take a look at.
Can you pass that link along, and I'm going to send out the materials from today, I think, after the meeting. So if you send that, I'll make sure we add that to the list if you can send it. Because I can't remember the act number now. I'd have to hunt it. I think you might be able to find it faster.
Yeah. I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, great. So, okay, so in the interest of time, I'm also going to get some feedback. Okay, can you guys hear us? Sorry, I accidentally muted myself too. Okay, the one thing I forgot to do with the roll call, sorry, is that and because we actually have guests, normally I'm by myself, but if guests on the line can introduce themselves just for the record, I forgot to ask that with roll call because we have a few other folks. So if you're there, can you say hello and who you are? And then we'll do the room. Oh, nobody's gonna chime in.
Hi, Eduardo Hernandez, Hawaii Bicycling League.
Lovely. Thank you, Eduardo. Who else have we got?
Hi, Rochelle Takara, Federal Highway Administration.
Oh, hi, Michelle.
Hello.
And I know Keopu was on earlier. She wrote a few texts, so we'll log her in. Anybody else listening in? I mean, technically Justin as well, although you are an alternate if needed. Anybody else?
Good morning, Amy Ford Wagner, Federal Highway Administration, Hawaii Division.
Okay, great. And then why don't we do the room since you guys have been just hanging out here? I feel sort of bad. Sorry about that.
No. Aloha, everyone. Laura Ka'akua, Climate Mitigation, Adaptation, and Culture Manager at HDOT.
Hello, good morning. Will Mariano from the Philippines.
Hello, Stiara from Indonesia.
And Will and STR are transportation professionals in their own countries, and they're doing a fellowship with us at HDOT and are both real safe routes to school and multimodal advocates. So thanks for allowing us to join you folks.
Yeah, they explained it to me earlier, but we weren't recording. And then I was like, oh, people might wonder who's in the room because I am. Okay. Great. So with that, we are going to transition to the next part. So give me a second. Let me share my screen. And switch. So we have some updates. So kind of just going to hit some administrative things. It continues to progress. Just as an FYI, the way the meeting invitations work is that if you were the official designee, you receive it. If you are unable to make it, you can either reach out to me and ask me to forward it along, or you can forward it along yourself, but only members are on the official invite. And then we have a list of folks who like to be notified about when the meetings are. And so I also have that list. So if you'd like to be on it or you're not on it, please let me know. I think most of the guests here are actually on it because they've already requested it. The one caveat though is that I can't inform everybody when the meetings get canceled. It gets like I can't remove it from your calendar. We probably should have notified you, and I apologize for that for the last one because I saw in the chat that some people were on, but it did get canceled, and it just to sort of note that. So I will try and do that better in the future, but again, I can't remove it from your calendar, unfortunately. So since we're voting today, I think this was said in earlier meetings, but I wanted to just remind is that majority rules. So, that's kind of how we're going to go. And we've actually fleshed out the calendar for the rest of the year with presenters. So next up is the City and County of Honolulu, County of Maui at the end of October. November, the Hawaii Department of Education is going to come and talk about their issues. They weren't able to make it today. They let me know in advance. December, there's a National Research Center on Safe Routes to Schools, and January is the Safe Routes Partnership, which is a national nonprofit, non-governmental organization. I've not done much more than that because this seems pretty good for right now. So, yeah. So we did hear some back from the AG about some of the questions, and we've got some good news and some additional questions, which we'll continue to figure that out. So we do know that HDOT may transfer funds from the Safe Routes to Schools program special fund to the counties, similar to how it had been done in the past, because originally there had been some questions about that, to be used for Safe Routes to Schools projects and programs through an intergovernmental memorandum of agreement. So that's really great. It will definitely make some of this process for this year, the funding recommendations a little bit easier. The funds transferred to the counties may also go to community-based organizations, but those have to happen through the county's respective processes. There's no existing mechanism for us to provide funds to CBO direct from HDOT, independent of a procurement. This is something we can actually put into the plan if we want to explore other ways. There are ways to do it. It's just we don't have them existing within the time frame while our budget authority exists, which is the 2024 to 2025, and a recommendation for budget authority. And HDOT or the committee can procure potential plan services through procurement processes, either an RFP, RFQ, or other open-ended contracts. But the committee is going to need to provide the scope and review deliverables and invoices. If an RFP or RFQ is issued, it would also need to provide the evaluation criteria as well as be represented on the evaluation committee. And that money remains in the Safe Routes to School Special Fund if not expended this year. So it's not kind of like use it or lose it. Some additional questions that came out of this is, can the IG MOAs apply to MPOs, since some of the MPOs have been asking about some of that in the past? Could it also be used for staffing support? We need to confirm that because it was actually asked about programs and projects, but it wasn't clear that it would also, I think we just need to clarify that programs would also include staffing since we've identified that as a potential. And then, as I mentioned earlier, how to provide funding to CBOs in future years, since that's kind of a big piece of the law. It seems like we would potentially might want to address that issue. Because I think the idea is to have sort of an expansive group of folks that can receive funds, apply and receive funds for this. Okay, that was a lot. Hence why I'm sending out the PowerPoint so people can sit with it. But are there any immediate questions? This is kind of the bulk of like, if we followed what we think we need to do for the law, how would we be able to do it and under what sort of mechanisms? Hold on, I can't see who's, if you're raising your hand, chime in. Let's see, sorry. Okay. Oh, there's one. So you're gonna go see all the chat, sorry. Okay, so it doesn't sound like, I suspect people need to process it. I will fully admit it took me at least a few days to work my way through all of it as well. So it's just, I think it just helps us understand what mechanisms are available to us as we move forward. And we'll kind of get to that a little bit later today. Oh, Yamato, go ahead.
So previously, we received Safe Routes to School funds as like a check from the Hawaii DOT. Is that, this would be the same way, basically, that's what it's saying? The same way we received funds in the past?
Yeah, that would be my understanding, although I don't think we've gotten that far necessarily, but that it can utilize the same mechanism that was used in the past for the Safe Routes to Schools distribution of funds. Tara, is that a correct? Am I saying that right? I want to make sure that I don't say something incorrectly.
So in the past, we did not have a intergovernmental MOA. We could just give them a check because we had the administrative rules. So that would be another requirement is the MOA.
Okay. So it sounds like in all likelihood, there would have to be something a little bit more substantial put in, but it's my understanding that historically though, the intergovernmental memorandums of agreement are something that are sort of utilized pretty consistently between the counties and the state. So, did you have another question, Yamato?
Oh, yeah, sorry. So this MOA has to be made specifically for this committee and the counties, or we just use like a generic one that's already established?
I don't think we have anything as of now. I mean, as far as like how much it would be and then what the counties would be required to do.
So maybe that's another question then. Okay. Heidi, I think you were raising your hand too. Yeah.
Yeah, I just also wanted to say something about, so intergovernmental MOAs are not, in my experience, quick. I mean, they're quicker than some things, but it still is a pretty long process. So this whole thing seems like quite a process to get money out. So I think we're going to have to think about if the counties have to have these MOAs with this state DOT, then how can that be like on a regular basis, or the way the money's divided up so that the counties don't need an MOA for every single different project that they want to do. And then I think it's going to be important to figure out like what is the limit, the financial, right, the funding cap for each MOA as well. Just sharing some of the things that I've found as I try and do agreements with counties.
Yep. No, I think that's all good information. I mean, I don't have any answers. I'm just trying to help work through this process as much as we can under the circumstances. So, all right, Senator Lee.
Oh, thanks. Just on this point, I think as part of the end of year report or whatever recommendations come out, identifying a lot of this stuff and figuring out, I think, what the ideal process would be super helpful, because we can always amend that in session and tack it on to another bill or what have you that's moving along.
Yeah, no, I think I've been keeping kind of a log of these things so that we have that for that purpose. I mean, I'm not sure there's much that can be done in terms of like some of this stuff is just the sort of the realities of the procurement. So the answer could be actually that we just have extended sort of budget authority or recommendations for budget authority past June 2024, because that's the big limitation as it stands right now. Because if it went longer, then we could get through these processes, right? But it currently expires then. So, but I think also noting that like, what we think we know about some of these issues and if there are other mechanisms, I think it's certainly important too. So, any other questions or comments? We will certainly probably come back to this. So I'm not, this is not the final conversation, because particularly as we make recommendations on what we think should happen, these are going to come into play on the how and the what. Okay. Sorry. Okay. So just as sort of a reminder, this is from an earlier, is that we kind of decided, extension of the last point, the last slide, is that there were sort of 3 committee priorities for this year. One was to create and launch a process to solicit and evaluate new project proposals. So we sort of knew what was out there, what some of the need was, independent of what the counties have been developing, over the past few years. Another one was to develop the recommendations for encumbering the 10 million. And then the last one is to provide, as Senator Lee pointed out, any legislative policy recommendations for the 2025 legislative session. Yamato, yes?
I think a big one that should be on here is that we create the intergovernmental MOA for each county.
I think that would be very difficult to do prior to developing recommendations as a committee of what we want to do. I think we would have to, correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I sort of thought about it is that we have to kind of agree and vote on the recommendations sort of as a framework, and then we would start that process. But that to start the MOA independent of how we want to spend the money would be premature. Because
in the MOA, does it designate exactly the dollar amount that's being transferred, or is it just like a generic, like we have MOAs with other departments and they're very like generic, like this money shall be used for these purposes, but it doesn't actually say like a dollar amount and there's no expiration to the MOA. It just a continuing ongoing like agreement that we have.
I don't know. This is outside of my area of expertise. So I have a call scheduled with procurement to talk about some of these things, but I don't have an answer. Anybody from HDOT can help?
I guess maybe I'll just offer, I think in other MOAs that I've seen or other agreements, ranking processes, there's like I guess I would say like a master agreement or language that's decided upon, and then it can reference back to, as determined by the committee, as, ranked by the committee. And if you have that top dollar amount up to such and such million.
Yeah.
So and then it allows for clarity on authority while letting you continue your process of evaluating projects. So my guess is that's the direction that the AGs would want to move, but I definitely can't speak for them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think it's a good point. But I also think that we do need to develop recommendations too. So, I would consider that embedded in that, but, if only because like, this isn't the only way the money can be spent. There are other things sort of potentially on the table. And so I think we have to kind of leave, I think in order to be sort of fair is to have the agreement on that and then kind of move forward. So, but we only have about 9 minutes left. And so I do want to make sure that we get to the vote that we need to have, which is, this was on our last meeting, and this pertains, to creating and launching a process to solicit and evaluate new project proposals. We had today, the request is to approve a 2-person PIG to actually kind of walk through some of this, like what's the proposal, what would be the evaluation criteria, how would we go about, requesting some of these types of projects, because there is a fairly strong emphasis within the law that we need to set up some sort of preliminary process for this activities. The last meeting, Jess and Yamato had volunteered to be on this particular PIG, but we need to vote on it today. So the action requested by the group today is to approve a 2-person permitted interaction group to develop a process to solicit and evaluate new project proposals. So can I get, well, okay, first up, are there any questions on what we kind of talked about and what we're proposing here? Yamato?
So is this restricted to just 2 people? In the previous slide, it said 2 or more people.
Yeah, so if we go up to that amount, then it has to be 3 meetings and it wouldn't be completed before 2025. So with this, it is a more fluid. So yes, it's restricted to 2 people. Any other questions? Sorry. I have like 3 screens. I have my computer and then I have looking at you guys. So, okay. Oh, Kurt, yes.
Hi, this is Kurt from the County of Maui. Is it, I guess, for this 2-person committee, are they supposed to be independent of the counties that would be applying?
I don't believe they have to be. I think it could be anybody who's a member on the committee can be a part of this permitted interaction group. It's not a commonly used pig construction is my understanding. In fact, I've never seen it, but it is one of the options under Sunshine Law for expedited workings between members. Sorry. Yamato. I'm sorry, Kurt, did that answer your question? My apologies.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, we could make it even more specific per county, right? Like we could have a pig, 2-person pig per each county.
But I mean,
Comes
well,
up
first
with a
off, then we
process.
have 4 pigs, which seems really challenging. And then we are sort of tasked with coming up with this. I mean, the way I interpreted it, which maybe is to have a statewide process for projects. It's not just for county projects, it's for all projects from anybody, from the Department of Education, from community-based organizations, from people who wanting to do programs, from a lot of our community partners. It's not specific to just the counties, this process. Leah? Sorry, Rihanna, if you have another one, then raise your hand again. Yeah.
I put it in the chat here. I would like to see where we're required to establish a PIC, because I'm fairly certain that 2 members of any board can meet without establishing any sort of PIC.
We can, the way I was sort of told with it was that in order to create the proposal though, and to have it be with full transparency, you're not required to do it. But that if we wanted people to work on it, this was a good way of documenting the accountability around it. So like, yes, we want someone to do this. It's these 2 members. And so you're right, it isn't required, but this was sort of one of the ways to help push the work along that I was advised by. So, you know, I'm winging it. I'm not familiar with a lot of this. So
yeah, we're just trying to make it easier by saying we don't actually have to do this. And then if the desire to do multiple ones, you know, we can just say, hey, multiple people work on this, and we don't have to necessarily vote on it. It can be, it is, and also wanting to make it clear that.
do you want to make that proposal then? I'm fine with it. I just don't want to do this work, to be honest. I want someone else to do it. So I'm kind of focusing on the other pieces.
I just also wanted to make it clear for other folks that it is okay for, as long as there's only 2 of you, for folks to discuss business specifically based on this too.
So, I mean, are you suggesting though that we just sort of allow Yamato and Jess to go off and work on this without voting on it, and they can come back to us? Is that okay with everybody then? I feel like, you know, we've done things that way, but it's usually in the context of this meeting rather than going off per se. Or they've been within the space of chair's discretion. So I felt comfortable taking them on behalf of the committee.
I'm happy with however you want to do it. I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. I really you guys, your commission has had so many things in this area, so it's, you know, we're not as sophisticated yet in this phase. Okay, well, I guess Jess and Yamato, are you guys comfortable just going off, or would you prefer that we vote on it under the circumstances?
I feel my main concern is getting the information publicly available. So like working, and I know I'm speaking to the choir, but I would like to have some place for this work to live, which would be a public website. Because otherwise we're just working and creating something behind the scenes that is not publicly available to people who would like to weigh in, and we don't have a functioning website. So that's my concern about this.
I'm fine with just going off with Jess and talking about it if everyone else is fine with that. And then if anybody else has, you know, ideas and things that they want considered and included, they could either come to Jess or me and we could talk about it, and then we can include it so that everyone's ideas are part of it.
Okay, so I think let's go with that. And Jess, I'm definitely noting it. And I mean, I share the same concerns, but I also think if we don't have a request with anything to post to do this, then then it would also not get done. I think it does need to be posted publicly and much more broadly than it currently would be right now with our website. So yeah.
Well, and that's my concern. Like I feel real hesitant about doing this work out when we don't have a place for the public, when the whole thing is supposed to be community engagement and based in what the community wants. And then me and Yamato, whether we do a pig or not, is not the important part to me. The important part to me is like what happens to that work and how are we able to share it so that more broadly communities can weigh in. So,
can I beg your indulgence on this, which is that if we wait, we won't be able to include it in the annual report. And I think that that's an important piece of it. So I hear you, I do. And we are continuing to work on that to have a robust space for it. But I do think that if we want to have any sort of process in which we get these projects sort of acknowledged and aggregated, we have to start working on this. At least like what would be the materials we would ask and what would we think are the important pieces of it. Like I think if we wait longer, it's going to be more and more challenging. So I would sort of say like I agree. I wholeheartedly think we should continue to push. And I know that that has been a process. So
and I think Jess, we could include in this process that we come up with the public, like the general public's input into the process. Even though we don't have that input at this time, we leave a space for it so that when it does get posted, it's very clear where it comes in and how it's treated.
Okay, I'm happy to go through the motions on this and see where it ends up. And I'm thinking a website where we are able to get people's feedback would be helpful. So okay, I'll keep it moving. I'm also a little jaded, as you know.
I know.
So okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a balancing act between trying to report out for December so that we can set the stage for some of this. Within this, like there's two different timeframes we have, right? We have one for like this year, which includes the annual report in December, and then also trying to move things through the procurement process. But then there's also setting the stage for the subsequent years too. And I think it's a balancing act between both of those. So I don't think of this as being the only way we can ever do this project process, but I do think it's a good way to capture that information right now. And to build, I think, some of the understanding of what the pipeline looks like in a much broader way than it had been done previously. So I do appreciate that. So I saw some other hands. Are we okay? We are actually at 11:01. If we'd like to continue this conversation, we would have to extend the meeting at this point in time. Or we can end it and come back to it at the next meeting.
I propose to extend it to 30 minutes more.
To 30 minutes more?
Well, we can always end it early, right?
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay. Is there anyone opposed to extending the meeting another 30 minutes?
You generally have a conflict at 11 o'clock on these days of the week.
Okay. Okay. Well, we do
you can extend the meeting, but I may have to jump off. That's all.
Okay. Okay, that sounds good. Well, then let's extend the meeting for right now and see if we can get through a few other things because I do think it relates to some of the conversations we're having. I am really going to try and be done by 11:15 now, so because I don't want to necessarily impose too far. So, okay. So this we probably do have to vote on, but I wanted to walk through it a bit more because I think it relates to a lot of the things we're sort of talking about right now, which is that this is a draft proposal for the funding dispersal. This is for the $10 million that we would make recommendations on and to a certain degree then start working on it, whether it be an MOU or otherwise. One is to invest in a comprehensive statewide Safe Routes to Schools plan to addressing a lot of these issues. There are requirements around evaluation and monitoring and project proposals, all of which sort of need to be set out and frankly probably shouldn't be done in the span of 2 months immediately. And so that would be one piece of it. The secondary piece is to provide staffing support across the state in a variety of spaces, really helping build the network of partners on the government side. This doesn't preclude staffing support from other, for other folks to propose in other ways, but it seems like there was a desire to really have a sort of a statewide network of people working on these issues. Now, I know most of the counties have folks, but it's funded in different ways. It's not necessarily full time, and so this is sort of a way of dedicating that space. So, those would be sort of like the first two that you would pick some sort of number for, and then the remaining would be for specific government plans and projects. Would be the remainder of the funds through sort of the MOU ITA process. If only because we do have this budget authority issue of 2024 to 2025. And this would kind of, because there's an existing list of Safe Routes to Schools projects that do need funding in all of the counties, and with the state, that this would be a mechanism of at least moving those forward under the circumstances. The non-governmental organizations, projects, programs, and plans honestly probably needs to be explored more thoroughly through the Safe Routes to Schools process. It runs into a lot of procurement laws, particularly since we're also asking for calls for projects that I just think is outside of the time frame to make recommendations for the 2025 session, and so I think it should be included in that. Just as a reminder for the statewide school, I'm going to go through this and then we'll do questions at the end, is that it has to do goals, strategies, and performance metrics, methods to ensure stability and consistency, recommendations to streamline and facilitate efforts by communities to apply for and implement projects, and identification and recommendation for additional funding, planning, and programming. That's a lot to do. There was also some previous conversations about committee support, with the minutes, with all of these other types of things, as well as some recommendations for technical assistance, like how to help people apply for things, how to promote the space. It would also address the community-based organization issues. Because I was a consultant, I kind of just put some numbers down. Again, these are all for discussion, and I don't even know that we have to discuss them today necessarily. We can put them on the next agenda, but I wanted to at least introduce them, which would be up to $5 million and include 5 years of support for the committee and for folks in the communities more broadly. This could probably be done through procurement this year with a scope being written. Not this year, but the 2024-2025 timeframe. It seems that we might have some options to do it through some existing mission support contracts, or open-ended, I think, as HDOT calls them. The staffing support really sort of relies on this language that was up above, that the county programs would have these sorts of elements. But I think, I think we can do it through the IGA process, but again, we have to confirm that. It was just for 5 years to really set out a statewide program, not just 1 year, but for multiple years. Again, this is still in progress. We're still trying to figure some of this stuff out. And then, as I mentioned, the last one would be with the existing Safe Routes to Schools, with counties and potentially the state, because I think the state also has some projects they've identified. I think the one thing to note is that, and Yamato, I think you brought this up in the past, couldn't we just distribute the same way? Is that because it's actually, the distribution has been sort of expanded past the counties. I don't know if that's an exact match necessarily, but I think this is sort of to be determined a bit, particularly on the evaluation. So, that's the last one that I have. So that's kind of the high level, I think, proposal, based upon what the law is, what we've sort of talked about, other programs, the desire to get money out the door and make some serious recommendations within the time frame that we have the budget authority. Are there questions? I would like everybody to kind of take this in, actually, before we talk. I mean, we can talk more about it, but are there things that we're missing? Yeah. Senator Lee?
Yeah, this is Chris, but I think James had his hand up earlier.
Oh, I'm sorry. James?
Yeah, I was just going to, call the question with respect to the two-person interactive group, just so that we can accomplish something. Meaning, if we're going to do that, I would move that we approve a two-person interactive group to work through the process for us and then report back. I don't know if I said that correctly, but as a motion, I'm moving
Okay.
that. So
Okay.
it,
Is there a second?
Seconded.
Okay. Is there anybody opposed to sort of formalizing the two-person PIG as discussed earlier? But I'll go with it. Okay, then the PIG has the official anointment vote behind it now. So, okay. Are there anything else, James? Would you on these
no,
slides?
it's. I'm trying to digest and
Yeah.
turn through this
We're
other
not
stuff.
done with this. Do not worry. I mean, I think this is a pretty important piece, but I did want to start introducing it and hearing people's feedback so that we can refine it. Because again, there's a December deadline for the report, which means it pretty much has to get written in October, to be honest, for it to allow for everybody's review. So I'm thinking, that schedule and that space. So. And I'm sorry, in case it was obvious, I was planning on drafting it. So with support from others, but yeah. Yes, Yamato.
So now that the PIG has been formed, I just want to let everyone know that you can email me or call me if you want something included or you have opinions about how the money should be used or anything like that, and I'll leave my contact in the chat.
Yeah, I think one clarifying point is that the process that Yamato and Jess are using is to give a sense of so that we can do a potential call for projects to understand what other things might be out there. It probably would not directly relate to the 2024-2025 money, but if you'll recall, there is another 13 million in the Safe Routes to Schools fund that if we receive budget authority for, we would have the ability to then use it for that potentially down the road. It could also influence the Safe Routes to Schools sort of 5-year, the plan process too. But I think it's important that we try and understand the larger universe of need of Safe Routes to Schools projects for the legislative session. And it's never really been opened up before, right? It's historically been the counties have brought those projects forward under sort of the federal definition and the federal funding source. And this is much broader as per the state law. Okay. Are there other questions? Feel free to reach out as well if you'd like to see other things or you have questions or anything. I think probably for the next meeting, we will dive in and maybe vote on the higher level formula of it so that we can move forward with the writing of the report under this recommended structure. But that doesn't necessarily mean that things aren't available for additional discussion. So. Okay. And again, we can also discuss it during the draft review because I am not going to submit anything that folks aren't comfortable with or haven't had a chance to review under the circumstances. So. Okay. I will also have an outline for the report too, just as an FYI. So just to kind of say what I think should go. If you have suggestions on what goes in annual reports to the legislature, please feel free to send them my way. I am making it up based upon my consulting background because I haven't necessarily found an amazing sample to work with. So
I'll just say if you guys can maybe throw a couple puns in there or something. These things are incredibly tedious to read, so anything that brings a smile.
Okay. Great. We are going to go onto the open forum in case anybody has anything else they'd like to raise. Okay. Any announcements? So the next meeting is October 15th at 10 a.m. I just figured I should say that now so everybody has it. Oh, you know what? And this slideshow actually has the full list. We've scheduled every single meeting. I think everybody got it in Word. We will be sending out meeting invites, so it's on your calendar if you are a member. Yeah, and are there others? If not, I wanted to note that Ulupono is sponsoring with the City and County of Honolulu, Angie Schmidt, a national expert on pedestrian safety. and some of the crisis that's happening on our streets on Wednesday. If you are in Honolulu, it's at the Blaisdell. And if you would like to get the invite to it, please let me know and I will send it your way. So we're super excited. She just landed yesterday. So that's just an FYI. So, but if you haven't seen it and would like to get the sign up and to join us, super excited. We have over 120 people signed up for it. So, which is a lot actually. We're very proud. So. Okay. Any other announcements from folks? You guys can come too if you want. Okay, and with that, I'm going to adjourn at 11:13. Bye. Thank you. Great conversations. I really appreciate it.
Mahalo,
Reach out
everybody.
if you have anything else.
Thank you,
And thank you,
everyone.
Jesse, again for your
Bye. Thanks,
presentation. It was
everyone.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Wait.